and 8th special presentation.
Coming up on Artbeat Nation, a photographer who has documented some of politics' most iconic figures.
The type of picture I'm looking for, sometimes I don't even know it.
An Iraqi painter who left his country in search of the American ideal.
Here I have freedom. I have freedom here.
A look at one of the most famous, little-known rooms in show business.
There was a lot going on. It was a crazy time.
And a multi-talented, multitasking musician.
That the act of playing music is a meditation.
It's all ahead on Artbeat Nation. Funding for Artbeat Nation is made possible by contributions to 8 from viewers like you. Thank you. At a time when all eyes are on the election, we take a look at the work of photographer Terry Gideson. She has spent her career photographing some of the country's iconic political and cultural figures, from Jesse Jackson to Prince.
For me, there's a difference between a photograph and a picture. A photograph is a snap. A picture is something that really says something, that's going to stand the test of time, that people can look at 100 years from now and learn something from it, or be intrigued by it, or poses more questions, perhaps. I'm Terry Gideson, and I'm a freelance documentary photographer. The documentary part, for me, has always been the most interesting form of photography. I'm not as much of a director. I like to go into a situation of chaos and find the picture. And I don't set things up with any of my work. And I've been pretty lucky at finding images that come together, and when it looks right, I push the button. The political work, I've gone for not necessarily the candidate who's going to win. It's more of the passion, you know, sometimes the underdog, sometimes people that I'm completely have opposite views of. I was just starting my career when the opportunity came along to be Jesse Jackson's photographer. It was people's reactions to Jackson, which to me was the most amazing part. There's just so much more that you can learn about a story by looking at the edges rather than just the central attention. It went right from Jackson to Wellstone because all the Jackson people were working on Paul Wellstone's campaign. I had never heard of Paul Wellstone. A friend of mine had said that, oh yeah, you should follow him. You'll probably like him. You know, he doesn't have a chance of winning, but you'll probably like him. And I thought, you know, okay, and I did like him. And he was very unusual, you know, going in and hugging everybody, and he was this little guy, and he had all this energy. So he was really interesting. When I heard the news of his death, I rushed right over to the office and documented that time period. And then shortly after that time, University of Minnesota Press asked me about doing a book, a collection of photographs. The book is definitely an archive of, for me, one of the greatest politicians Minnesota's ever had. I had to go through 12 years of my life looking for what might be the important images. The photo of them that's on the cover of the book, I remember the moment very clearly because it was on Election Day of '96, and it was supposed to be his last time he was going to run. So, you know, it was like, oh, this is going to be the last hurrah, and I was back. There was this platform on the back of the bus, and we were in Uptown. We were having a great day. They were driving all through different places, and there was another picture on the same roll that is from the inside of the bus that shows the two of them. I love that picture, and that was the one that I always chose. And then it was going through the proof sheets when I was editing for the book that I discovered that one, and it you know, right away, I just thought, okay, it's a great moment, and it really captures their energy and spirit probably better than any other photograph I ever made of them. Because I've been photographing politics for so many years, the type of picture I'm looking for, sometimes I don't even know, except that I am looking for metaphors that speak either about the candidate, the issues at hand. Well, I think it was at the Republican convention that year, actually, the year that, what was that, in '92, with George Bush, and Pat Buchanan was giving his speech and slamming, you know, the media, slamming liberals, gays and lesbians, and like I fell into all these categories, and people were cheering as he condemned these people, and I'm in the middle of the floor going, oh my God, this is scary. So I think maybe one thing I'm trying to do is maybe wake people up a little bit to pay attention and to be involved. I'm most known for the political work, I think, probably because of the Wellstone book. But basically, I'm a storyteller. And I love telling stories. And I've done projects on homeless mothers in transition. I did a project for the History Center on Minnesota snowbirds. You know, for a while I had a column in City Pages called Terry Gideson's Daybook. And it was a great little thing where every Tuesday I brought a new photo in that was, you opened up page 3, it was right there, and it was no cut line, it was just, it had to be a good photo. And I still try to pretend that I have that, you know, just a daybook, you know, slice of life pictures. So, I mean, I try to do that a lot of just what's around me, what's in my own backyard, what's, you know, what's on my walk today. I had gotten a phone call from another photographer who had told me that Prince was looking for a photographer. And it's a long story on how the whole thing happened, but I ended up being hired to document his 1992 tour to Europe. And it resulted in a book of photographs called Prince Presents the Sacrifice of Victor. His title, not mine. The parts that were most fun was actually the after-concert gigs, because he'd have the concert and he'd go and jam for 2-3 hours. And that's where I made, you know, some of my best pictures, because then it was a different kind of a thing. There was more audience interplay, you know, everything was closer, it was very intimate. You know, one of my favorites was after he had just jammed for like 45 minutes on one song at the end. And he went down behind stage and just laid back on the floor. And there's almost sort of this religious nature of him stretched out like Christ on the floor in a way. Probably the best part of the experience was seeing what a genius he is, a musical genius. And to be able to have this record of that period of time recorded, again, ties into my whole feeling of like wanting to be a visual historian that leaves a record. And, you know, this is definitely one of Minnesota's greatest artists, and it was a privilege for me to be able to watch him make his music and just observe that artistry. The idea of what's happened with digital and how it's changed photography as an art form, and there's this, there's such a need for instantaneous photos, and people want them up on this website or on their Facebook and all of that, instead of, you know, just taking the time to look, frankly, first, instead of just shoot, look later. I still prefer an image that can really tell a story, that within that one image that will hold the attention and bring that intrigue and bring the questions, and maybe in some cases bring the horror in to have people take action.
Terry Gideson continues to cover politics in Minnesota, where she is now documenting the debate around a marriage rights amendment to the state constitution on the ballot in November. To see more of her work, visit her website at terrygideson.com. Next, when museums in Iraq were destroyed during the Iraq War, many people in the United States heard about it on the news. Farouk Hassan was in Baghdad when that happened, and he lost part of himself that day. He fled the war in his homeland for the United States, leaving behind a lifetime of artwork and a reputation as one of Iraq's most prized artists.
It's a far cry from his 5-bedroom mansion in Baghdad. Farouk Hassan turns an already tiny apartment kitchen into his art studio.
When I work, I like to hear music. A classic, all the classic.
But as long as he has canvas and paint, Farouk is satisfied.
I feel inside me, inside my soul, that this painting is the only one here. It's the only thing in here. So actually I don't feel that it's a small place. I feel just me and the painting.
Without skipping a beat, Farouk carries forward the art career he started more than 50 years ago.
I try to taste many kind of style when I was young, and I continue.
Over the past 50 years in Iraq, Farouk mastered so many styles, so diverse, you might think the work came from several different artists. His work hung in galleries in London, Amman, Jordan, and at home in Basra and Baghdad. The Iraqi government contracted with Farouk to design more than 80 different stamps. The people of Iraq knew the art of Farouk Hassan. In 2010, Farouk fled to the United States and left behind all of his work and his fame. It's like losing yourself.
Yeah, of course. But I try to renew myself.
Farouk took his paintings to the Gezer Gallery in Multnomah, where curators embraced his art immediately.
Well, without a doubt, he was extremely experienced. His layout, his form, design, color, it was magnificent. He is into that master's quality, obviously a lifetime of artwork.
The gallery is hanging Farouk's solo exhibition.
He is flourishing, and what a thrill to be a part of that.
Today, Farouk's paintings strike a similar central theme.
I want to create a beautiful painting. The first thing I choose, the women. The women is beautiful, of course. They're beautiful. I believe that the women is the origin of the life.
You'll find examples of veiled women in Farouk's earlier work. Today, Farouk has done away with the veil.
This woman is the truth. The truth is open, but the untrue is covered. Cover their mind, cover their brain. Here, indeed, I feel complete freedom without any feeling of something who watch me, what I do, and what I paint or what I think. Here I have freedom. I have freedom here.
Once a national treasure of Iraq, Farouk Hassan starts over as a complete unknown in a new country and begins the process of rebuilding his reputation.
To see some of Farouk's work, visit gezergallery.com/gallery. The famed Plaza Hotel is one of only 2 hotels designated a National Historic Landmark in New York City. The Plaza's illustrious visitors include the Vanderbilts and the Beatles. But there is one little-known part of the Plaza's history that author Patty Farmer uncovered in her book, The Persian Room Presents.
You would think with a legacy property like the Plaza Hotel in New York City, each story surrounding the place would have already been told. When Patty Farmer moved into a renovated condo in the hotel, she found that assumption to be way off the mark.
I kept hearing about this Persian Room, this nightclub that used to be there many years ago. And through research, I found out it had been there for 4 decades. And I had never heard of it. A lot of people had never heard of it. And I wanted to know more about it. So I went to the management of the hotel and asked to look in their archives. And Maria, they looked at me like I had green hair. They said, "Archives? We have no archives." I know, the Plaza Hotel. And I thought that was shameful. I said, "You've been here 100 years. You have nothing. The Beatles are here. Marilyn Monroe was here." They said, "We have an odd picture or 2, but no archives."
So a few phone calls later, a curiosity quest took on a whole new purpose. And the result? The Persian Room.
So I was lucky enough to be able to talk to some of the greats, Marge Champion, Andy Williams, Jack Jones, Patti Page, Lainie Kazan, and they put the heart into it. The way they had it set up was prior to the show, the maitre d' would tell the entertainer who was in the audience, because any given night, the celebrities weren't only on stage, it was always in the audience, kind of like Vegas in the old days. After people did their shows, they would go to the Persian Room and catch another show. So the maitre d' told Carol, all the people that were in the audience and had to be recognized. And he was a Hungarian gentleman, and he said, "Oh, and, we're so lucky we have someone here, but you can't mention him. He can't be mentioned, Mr. Cary Grant, So Carol, did her opening bit, and then she got to the part, and she said, "Oh, Ethel Merman's here, and, this one's here, and that one's here." And she said she couldn't help herself. Finally, she said to the audience, she said, "We all know there's an elephant in the room, and I'm not supposed to mention him, but I have to mention him. Mr. Cary Grant, thank you so much for coming." And she said she saw at this little table back there, he stood up, and he folded his napkin, put it down, and she thought she blew it. She thought he was getting ready to leave out that door that he was right by. But then he walked to the front, and the audience went crazy. They stood and clapped, and he went up to what was, the stage, although it was ground level, and she put on her best Fanny Brice voice and said, "Oh, you're gorgeous," and he dipped her over and kissed her, and he said, "Right back at you."
A kiss worth sharing. The intimate setting of the Persian Room lasted until 1975. Patty found that the stories live on quite vividly with those who grace the place with their talents.
You have been able to kind of garner and gather into your collection a lovely clutch of gals that talk about their experiences and are very frank and very forthright about how outrageous that period of time was.
Absolutely. You had Connie Stevens and Michelle Lee and the wonderful Lainie Kazan, Diane Carroll, carried over from the 50s into the 60s, and the 70s you had Rosalind Kind and Kay Ballard, and the 60s were crazy times. And Connie Stevens met Eddie Fisher at the Persian Room. Eloise was born in the Persian Room, so there was a lot going on. It was a crazy time.
Patty Farmer's book, The Persian Room Presents, is available in ebook or hardcover. Finally, Nathan Bell uses anything from a bow, finger, pick, or claw hammer to create new and unexpected sounds on his banjo. Bell also plays trumpet, bass, guitar, and drums, and has played with a range of musicians in the U.S. and abroad.
I see music as an artist would paint a picture starting with a blank canvas. And it's not just everybody does this when they play music. It depends on which level that one is trying to go for. But for me, it's more of just sitting down. I take a deep breath. I guess, as they say, pulling from within. In travelings, it's great because I play a banjo in a different manner. It's like I get to meet other people who are doing the same thing, and when you meet people on the same page, that's when the ideas start bouncing. And oh, I like what you're doing. That's really creative, and you just go from there. And I've gotten to go traveling, touring, go play. Brazil was very culturally enriching, absolutely. I've learned something for myself recently in the past few years, that the act of playing music is a meditation in a form, and there's really some kind of science to it. There's something going on, something very exciting I've learned recently. They were talking about the brain, and when it comes to music, we now know that both sides of the brain are revving full on when it comes to music, and that was just high praise. That's great to know. Just try to make it as pure as possible, and I think people can appreciate picking up on that. And so it goes over. I get a lot of very kind words after play.
Nathan Bell has performed with bands in the United States and in Brazil. You can listen to music from any of his albums at nathanscottbell.com. For more arts and culture, visit azpbs.org/artbeat, where you'll find featured videos and information on the Arizona art scene. Funding for Artbeat Nation was made possible by contributions to aid from viewers like you. Thank you.